I'm going to grab a button from over here in the palette and then drag it to the bottom of the screen. I'm looking for a solid green line along the bottom to show that I'm aligned to the bottom edge, and a vertical dotted line going up the center to show that I'm centered horizontally. Once I see both of these, I'll drop the button in place. Looks good, but we should probably change the words "new button" to something else. Just like a text view, buttons also have a text property. Let's change this text to say "show another fun fact." Hit enter, and there's the text. Now, we'd like our button to stretch to take up the whole width of the screen. We can do this by simply clicking this button up here. This toggles a property of the button called Layout Width. If we scroll all the way up in the Properties view and click on it, we can see the values change. It's currently set to Match Parent, which matches the size of the button to its parent, which in this case is the whole screen. But if I press the button again, it changes to Wrap Content, which wraps the content of the button. It makes it as small as possible based on the content that's inside. Let's flip that back to Match Parent. Cool. This may not be very pretty yet, but this is the basic structure for our screen. Let's do one more thing before we make the button actually do something. Let's switch to the XML view by clicking on the Text tab at the bottom. Notice that we have XML elements called Text View here and here that represent our two text views. Then down here, we have a new Button XML element that represents our button. When we drag and drop a view onto the screen from the Design tab, this is the kind of XML that gets produced to represent that view. If we wanted to, we could have typed this all out instead of dragging and dropping to the screen. Let's take a look at the second text view, the one with the fun fact. It has a property called ID, which is set to @+ID/textView. This part after the slash is the actual ID, text view. We can also see that an ID was generated for our button, @+ID/button. The @+ID/ part is the prefix that lets Android know that this is an ID we can use in the system. The ID itself is also important because it's what we'll use to refer to these views from within our code. These generic IDs will work, but we should really strive to name things more descriptively. It'll help us make sense of our code when we revisit it later. We can just change them in here, but if we do, we'll also need to update every reference to the IDs in our code. Now, there aren't yet any other references to these IDs, but it could be a big deal in a more complex project. For that reason, it's a good practice to change IDs, and most other things, by doing a refactoring. Refactoring is awesome, because we can rename our ID in one place, and Android Studio will take care of updating every other reference to that ID automatically. Let's right-click on the ID for our fun fact text view, and then select Refactor, and then Rename. Then let's change the ID from Text View to Fact Text View. Be sure to leave the @+ID/ prefix, and then hit Enter to rename it. Let's also change the ID of our button. Right-click on its ID, select Refactor, then Rename, and let's name it Show Fact Button. Then hit Enter again, and we're back to the XML view. Great! Let's run our project to make sure that everything looks okay on the emulator. And this time, let's check the Use Same Device for Future Launches checkbox, so we aren't presented with this dialog each time we want to run our app. Then hit OK to run it. Alright, we're looking good. Okay, so it doesn't do much, but we can tap on our button down here to our heart's content.